just about a line further than we started yesterday. The line starts with what Gam Hamshachosam, about a third from the top of page Nun. So we explained yesterday the principle of the shoresh. Now the shoresh, in actual truth, that which you see on a functional level is fully representative of its beginning, of its source. And thus, its essence is to be viewed and measured not by on its functional level, but by its source. And this is why we're saying that the neshamis, representing their source, they are in an atzmi. They have an infinity in element inherently. Their presence is there to represent the infinite, the truth, the essential truth, rather than on any kind of a functional level. V'chein, okay, this line, v'chein b'klolus. Similarly, b'klolus in a very general, very general perspective. Hare ha-neshames lo yizbatlu l'shliela. The neshames will not dissipate, will not be nullified ever. V'yiyu gam la'osid, and they will persist even la'osid, even in the future days, when is going to be a fundamental change in entire creation. Shaharei boy lameis. Now, in contrast, in worlds, Omer Razal, the Chacham say, Shit alfishnin have almo v'chat cheruv, that the world is for 6,000 years, and then there's 1,000 at cheruv, where it is nullified, it is wiped off. Shehakoil yizbatel yosid, which means that everything will be nullified, will cease to be. Lost it in the future, gam b'madrigas and yenes, even in the higher madrigas, not only in the physical world, even in the higher madrigas. Ukmei shekosu, and as the pasuk says, kasher hashamayim achadoshim ha'oretz achadoshim, like the new shamayim and the new oretz that I'm going to make, which means that it's going to be a cease of the shamayim as they are now. There'll be a new shamayim, a new oretz. Because the Oretz and Shemayim, as great and profound as they are, they have an inherent definitive presence, and therefore that presence will be nullified. But the Shomes, which means a limit, they represent a limit. Perhaps I will now elaborate slightly on the question that was asked yesterday: is the world finite? Is the world limited? And we answered that no matter how great the world is and whatever it is, it represents a finite element. And the principle in this is that if we speak, for example, anything in the world, the most limitless, so to speak, aspect that we can perceive in the world is space itself. And yet, in this space, it can be viewed as chunks of space brought together, an unlimited number of chunks of space. In other words, any element of space can be measured. This is why we are able to put finite entities in the space. If space were inherently infinite, you could not put a table in space, because it would be in a different realm. So even though, yes, indeed, it's conceivable that space has no end, but it has no end within the finite criteria. And this is what world is in general. World consists of multiplicity. Multiplicity means, by definition, that there are many things. There are many things. That means each thing has its finite presence. The shoresh, on the other hand, are inherently without limits. Aval neshomis, but neshomis, yiyu kayomim lo'ila. They will persist forever. V'hainu, and that is, what is this eternal persistence of the neshomis represent? Mipnei shehan shomei, mipnei shehein inyan atzmi. Because they are an atzmi, an essential principle. Neshomes are not merely that which gives off life, they are the essence of life itself. Again, as I mentioned many times, the principle of etzem is impossible to define in our worldly context. The definition etzem is super worldly. Like we point out to the sun, to say that the sun is an etzem behiri, brightness in the sun is an essential reality, etzem. And when we view the sun from a worldly perspective, we cannot understand how is it that it produces so much energy on a constant basis without any diminishing of the energy, of its power. Within worldly context, there has to be some kind of a change. Something burns and burns up. The sun does not burn up, because the principle of light from the sun is not of a finite, definitive, definable presence. It is there because Hashem wants it to be there. This is light from the sun, the real light from the sun. As we mentioned out, that actually light was created the first day of creation. Then there was no sun. That means that light was not an emanation from some kind of a physical source. It is light per se, a godly reality. We discussed this many times. This godly reality was removed from the world because that would clash with the world. The world cannot tolerate it and remain world. And instead it was hidden in the sun. And now the energy of the sun and the heat of the sun camouflages this essential truth of light. But it remains a paradox. It camouflages it, but it still reminds us of the reality. Okay, shehem inyan atzmi, because on the shoresh are an inyan atzmi. Neshamas are not functionally giving of life. They are the essence of life. V'ho'etzem, and etzem, something that is that has that kind of quality. Etzem eino nichla v'nifsek. Etzem does not get burned up, does not interrupt. Ve'eino misbatel li'yolam, and it is not nullified, doesn't dissipate ever. Because it is an etzem. And again, to understand etzem is beyond the capacity of seichel. But we are pointing out the various things. When we point out something that hits home very, very deeply, and that is the human being. Human being is an essential, an essence, a human essence that Rebbe created in the world that does not really fit in the parameters of world. He exists and lives in an independent presence, existence, not world dependent like everything else. And thus, this etzem, this human being, whatever you do with him, remains a human being. I can point out, you find a human being lying in the gutter, he is still exactly the same.
In terms of the neshama in this Paltiel, how exactly is when we say Ayin B'Shalom, what do we mean in light of mentions in Tanya, the neshama's desire to rise, to depart from the kuf, similar to a flame's desire to depart from the wick, even though it knows that it will be nullified in its source over there, similar to a spark nullified in the flame.
So this was discussed a little while ago. We have to read those words in tiny more carefully. The Alter Rebbe says it would not dissipate. It would lose its previous presence.
Mm-hmm.
But its essence will not dissipate. Its previous presence.
Yeah, so its individual identity is or whatever we consider neshama individual identity, it loses its identity as being an individual.
No.
No?
No. It will still have no God as an individual neshama, but its original presence. The original presence was that I was aware that I'm, let's say, in the world, and I have this striving to Lukus. That I will lose. I will not be in the world, and I will not sense this striving to Lukus. But what makes me strive to Lukus? The essence, that remains. The reason that I'm striving to Lukus, because I don't fit into the world. Why? Because in essence I don't fit into the world. That remains. Zehu, and thus this is what we are pointing out all the time. This principle that we said that the neshamas were created bebechinas, having that quality of a mahus or mitzias dover, a real presence of a dover, and separate and an independent entity. Hainu, meaning to say, shehei inyan atzmi, that they are an essential element. Atzmi, again, there's no way that we can define atzmi in words, but it means essentially, I am what I am. Va'amiti, and the true mitzvahs. clearly, this in Atzmi, I am what I am, and I'm a true presence, is possible only because there is a godly element that was imbued in them. Because that kind of truth exists only in the essence of godliness. Umetzius on who their mitzius, the mitzius of the neshamas, is ha'oir ha'pnimi v'ha'atzmi. The pnimi oir and the atzmi oir. I'll try to put it a little bit in perspective what he's saying here. This is really an allusion to what already was discussed before. Oir ha'pnimi v'ho atzmi shenimshar behashpo zu. The oir pnimi atzmi that is drawn in this hashpo. Shezeh gufo, where this itself, this fact that the oil pnimi v'atzmi is nimshik in this hashpo, nase b'bchinas mitzias neshama. This becomes the mitzias neshama, the neshama. This union that this becomes the mitzias neshama is a direct reference to what we discussed yesterday, that there is the shoresh, there is the source, and then there is that which results from that, which comes through from the source. In the neshama, that it remains in the source from which it comes. That's what the neshama is. This is what becomes the neshama. What is the source of the neshama? The oil pnimi v'yatzmi. What does that mean, oil pnimi v'yatzmi? That the creation of the neshama is not something that was elicited from a lakus for some kind of reason, for some kind of effect, some kind of a functional element. No, it is something that came from the etzem of a lakus, that a lakus wanted neshamas. Oil pnimi v'yatzmi. Not for some functional element. World is in order to display the koiches and the ability that's inherent in the lakus, the seichel and midas and so forth. Neshama is not for any of that purpose, accomplishment. It is that Atzmus wanted neshamas. This means it's an internal desire, not an desire to display, to manifest, but an internal desire. That means a pnimi v'yatzmi. And that oy pnimi v'yatzmi shenim shem hashpoah zut, this oy pnimi that is drawn in this hashpoah. In other words, what initiated the creation of the neshama? And oy pnimi v'yatzmi, something internal and essential in the etzem itself. That which initiated it, that becomes the neshama itself. That gufa nasa b'bchinas mitzias neshama. V'chein hu, where this is the fact, Behamshochas oir atzmi, when you mamshich, when there is an oir atzmi that's drawn, we'll go through 2 lines and then we'll be able to discuss it a little bit. This is the principle that is represented in Hamshochas oir atzmi, that when an oir atzmi is drawn, the yizhavus mizeh, that which comes into being as a result of Hamshochas Eir Atzmi, Hu bechinas ho'atzmi mamo. Is something that qualifies as an atzmi. It's a bechina of atzmi itself. What is the reason there's neshamas? Because there is a likus. There is no secondary explanation, secondary meaning. Okmation is boile yil, and as we already explained before, the ho'atzmi einay nase b'bchinas moker l'dogo. That atzmi never acquires a status of being a mocker, of being a source for something. Because if he is a source for something, then something else is being created and he is only the source for it. Atzmi does not become separate from itself. And then in parenthesis, if the Atzmi were to become a mocker for anything, then that which comes into being as a result is not the mocker itself, it's something that comes from the source. That's not a source. Atzmi never becomes a source for anything. Kiyim, rather, sheho atzmus gufo naset bebchinas mehus o mitzias dobo. Now the meaning of an atzmi is that the atzmi itself, that becomes a mitzias, a separate mitzias. The atzmi itself becomes a separate mitzias. And that is what to be understood of the moshel, the Beis hashpoes hanal, of the two types of hashpoes that we discussed before. What are the two hashpoes? I'm just going to mention it, and this is going to do it tomorrow. The two hashpoes that we discussed, hashpoah ruchnis and hashpoah gufnis. Hashpoah ruchnis is like hashpoah seichel, on the highest level. That's hashpoah ruchnis. There's a mocker that's mashpia seichel. Hashpoah gufnis, the mashpia itself becomes a mushpa. It's not a mocker. Yeah. I think I can see the time here, but that's it. All right, so this is it for this morning. We'll go into this tomorrow. Yeah. So have a great day. Oh.
In the Gufni, the Hamshach is coming from a source that's higher than both of the. It's coming from, as you said, like it's initiated from Lamaila. But in the Nimshal, the Atzmus itself, the
Hashpoah gufnis or hashpoah ruchnis?
The Hashpoah gufni. You're saying that it's coming from a source that's higher. It's the initiator is beyond both of them. That's how we explained it. But in the Nimshal,
1 second. And the initiator is what represented
in the
mushpa.
In the Mushpa.
Because he becomes a real presence, like the initiator. Meaning that the initiator is talking about zibug.
Yeah.
Zibug guf. creates a hashpah. Now, what initiates the zivug gufni is something that is beyond either one, and this is what becomes the resultant creation. Hashpah.
And we don't say that higher thing is the makar.
Right. Because if it were the makar, it would not create anything akin to itself. Let's put it in very simple terms. There's a father and a mother, and they have a child. Who creates a child? The father and the mother, or God? Do you understand what I'm saying?
The Eibishter, I mean, ultimately creates, yeah.
It's a godly creation. Akin to the father and the mother themselves.
Right. So in other words, they're not the makar.
They're not the makar, and that which brings them together is not the makar.
Why not?
Because then the resultant creation would not be akin to that source. But he's akin to that source. It's a real presence. It's a standalone.
The Eibishter is the makar.
The Eibishter gives a human being a real presence. That's what I'm saying. A human being has a real presence, representative of his Creator. To the extent that he can choose to do whatever he wants. He owns the whole world. He's limitless.
Okay, I'm just having trouble fitting it into the. I know we've been over this many times, but the you know, why don't we say that the Eibishter is the makar for the child?
Because then the child will be a ruchni, not a gufni.
Okay, I'm just not trying to fully understand.
Not an essential, not an essence, not a presence. Then the child would be a true presence only if he talks about the Eibishter. But if he talks about himself, it doesn't exist. There's nobody to talk about.
And what about the term? I mean, we'll talk about tomorrow. But what about the term? Why the term makar implies that the new creation wouldn't be its own entity? The term makar, in other words, why is it that?
This is the meaning of the word makar. Makar means a source for,
Right.
not it.
Not it.
In order to become a source for it, then you have to be able to stay, to give off some of yours and remain. But that's not what happens. Etzem cannot give off a piece of etzem.
Because it wouldn't be etzem.
What is the makar for the human being occupying this whole home?
He himself is in the whole home. It's not some derivative of him.
Not a functional thing. I walk into your home. I'm not interfering with you at all in terms of what comes off from you. I'm interfering with you yourself. But I'm in the bedroom, I'm in the attic, I'm in the basement. You're interfering with me.
This shows
that this essence, there's no soul, does not stay away. It is whatever it is the whole thing.
I thought we were making a distinction between makar and shoresh.
No. Bibchina smoker, right. Making a distinction on a functional level. Bibchina smoker means it is only a source, but not itself. Maybe this is the difference comes out in terms of how we explain it. That's not necessarily the words. Really?